So we had some big news coming out of Epic Games and Fortnite. Now, I've said for a while, Fortnite is that live service game that just keeps on going. And in fact, it's been going so well that companies like Sony, who has the platform that it's played on quite a bit with the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, have benefited a lot. Like, seriously, this is the most money that Sony's made in a long, long time, the most ever on the PlayStation 5. And as they've said to us before, half of the money coming in through PlayStation Network is from a lot of these multiplayer live service games, and Fortnite is a massive, massive player in that scene. So when I see some faltering from Fortnite, some faltering from Epic Games, it does give me some pause because at that time it is kind of a red flag, it should be, I think, for the gaming industry, especially for a lot of these publishers with live service aspirations to understand exactly what you're getting into, not for the short term, but for the long term, and how things, it just one little slip up, things can go very poorly very quickly. But we're going to go over some of that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So a lot of this started here, and this was a post that was dropped on their news section over on the Epic Games website, and it just says today's layoffs. Now, this is Tim Sweeney who is writing this up, and he says this note was sent to Epic employees today. Today, we're laying off over 1,000 Epic employees. I'm sorry we're here again. Real quick, he says, I'm sorry we're here again. It's because in September 2023, Epic Games is laying off more than 800 people. We've been spending way more money than we earn. In 2024, October 1st, 2024, Tim Sweeney says Epic Games is now financially sound after last year's layoffs and Bandcamp fumble. Anyway, we're back. Here we go. So yeah, sorry we're back here again. Anyway, they say the downturn in Fortnite engagement that started in 2025 means we're spending significantly more than we're making, and we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded. This layoff, together with over 500 million of the identified cost savings in contracting, marketing, and closing some open roles, puts us in a more stable place. Some of the challenges we're facing are industry-wide challenges, slower growth, weaker spending, and tougher cost economics. Current consoles selling less than last generations, and games competing for time against other increasingly engaging forms of entertainment. Cue the form video, the shorts, the TikTok, screens all over the place. Okay, like we've heard that many times as it is from all these different companies. I mean, we've heard Nintendo and Sony say it to their investors basically, hey, there's more competition than ever for people's attention. Way different than it was back in the 90s, for example, when you had maybe one TV in the house and the N64 or the PlayStation 1 was hooked up to it, and it got the attention, right? That's the way it was. Even later on with the 360 and the PS3, you didn't necessarily have the social media push that we have now, where it's everywhere. Like, you can't escape it. So yeah, there's attention being grabbed everywhere. Still though, Fortnite is like on all these different platforms. Well, kind of. And that does play into some of the slip ups that have happened with Epic Games over the past few years now. Because if you go back to like 2023 for Fortnite, it was, through the roof. They had incredible amounts of engagement. And this was even like after the pandemic, which that saw a lot of engagement as well. That really ramped up their growth, I would say, was during that time where everyone was staying inside and looking for things to do. And oh, look, free to play games. It made sense, right? It all lined up. But that got a lot of awareness, even more so. Fortnite was blowing up, I remember, in 2018 or 2019, but then it kept the momentum going, I would say, with everyone staying inside and looking for something to do. Okay. So he goes on to say, and some of our challenges are unique to Epic. Despite Fortnite remaining one of the most successful games in the world, we've had challenges delivering consistent Fortnite magic with every season. We're only in the early stages of returning to mobile and optimizing Fortnite for the world's billions of smartphones, and in being the industry's vanguard, we have taken a lot of bullets in a battle, which is only in the early days of paying off for ourselves and all developers there. Yes, they're kind of paying themselves as like the martyr there. Like, hey, we took Apple to court and Google to court, and we did it for everyone. It's like, okay. Like, here's the thing. All right, so this crusade that happened against Apple was all about like the walled garden approach, where they were taking 30% cuts of all these microtransactions that Fortnite was running. And really just Tim Sweeney didn't like that. So he waged this long drawn out court battle for years. And I mean, they were kicked off of iOS, and that is a massive moneymaker. I mean, I think they even said Tim Sweeney estimated like $1 billion over so many years is what they were expecting to lose for not being there. And then comes back to them now saying, "Oh, this will we're going to identify $500 million of cost savings in these 1,000 Epic employees being laid off." And you start doing the math, and you're like, "Oh, whoops." So I look, they're as he says, they're optimizing and setting back up to go to phones. With iOS, I assume being like the big driving force there. There's also a whole thing with Google where there's like exchange of money and stuff. It didn't necessarily go over, I think, the smoothest for them, but they are at least coming out of the other side of a lot of these dust ups in the courtroom. Still, though, it's not at a great time either, though. All right. So along with this, Fortnite, they're also shutting down some of their modes because they were trying to make Fortnite this like platform. So not necessarily what it started out as, which was like save the world, just this game they came up with. They pivoted to battle royale, and then they really doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on that. And then they thought, okay, can we do more and expand outside of this with things like what rocket racing and festival battle stage and ballistic, and they were trying to build. Remember the metaverse? And that was a whole thing. They were trying to build that, and the metaverse and stuff. That feels like ancient history now, where all I hear about currently is AI. That was kind of like what AI is now, but back then. And I say back then, it was really like 5 years, 6 years ago, something like that. So, man, time moves fast, doesn't it? So anyway, here we are now with Fortnite, which has grown and grown and grown, but it's not exactly a market, I think, that is growing with it, or at least fast enough to hold up a lot of the aspirations and a lot of the mistakes that Epic Games has been making. So we're seeing this, for example, that Battle Royale is starting to slump a bit. 27% playtime drop in 2025. All right, so Fortnite experienced a 29% drop in playtime. Apex Legends down 24%. Call of Duty titles declined 33%. But look, PUBG managed a slight 2% gain. So with Fortnite, I say Fortnite has faltered, okay? And when you think about Fortnite faltering, it's like, hey, instead of 125 million monthly active users, it's 110 million. So I know there are people online who are thinking, "Oh, Fortnite's like dead." No, no, no. It's still a thriving marketplace technically for microtransactions, but it's not thriving as much as it was 2 years ago. Okay. So because of that, they of course have certain costs that they've lined up, and look, they spend a lot of money. I don't think that's shocking to anyone to know, but in order for them to kind of stay in the position that they're in, it really is, how do we continue grabbing attention in a crowded marketplace? Because eventually you can become yesterday's news if you're not doing some wacky and crazy collaborations that I'm sure are pretty expensive to do. You know, like you see, they are all over the place. I think right now I saw it was Bugs Bunny and stuff, but I've seen like Naruto running around in there. You know, that you see the collaborations with celebrities and like celebrity likenesses in there. Those contracts got to be crazy expensive. And that's just kind of the situation with live service games. And the thing that I hope that a lot of companies look at and go, "Oh, okay, that might be kind of an issue," is it's sort of what Naughty Dog noticed at the last minute, which is, "Oh, this is going to take up a lot of our time because we're going to have all these developers working on this constantly to introduce new content. And in turn, it's going to keep costing us more and more money." And then now with that in mind, add in, sure, the labor and all the developers working on Fortnite, but then also add in the collaborations and everything else. Guys, this is a lot of money to make some of these live service games work well. And it's like, if you have a little slip up, you apparently end up with 1,000 people getting laid off. Of course, Epic Games does more than just Fortnite, but I'd be shocked if the Epic Game Store is a big time moneymaker for them. Seems like it's still slow going. While it's growing a bit, they also work off of just giving away games constantly throughout the year. Unreal Engine has been widely adopted by the industry, But as we've seen games take longer and longer to come out, whether it is built on Unreal Engine, we'll say 5 or not. And now they're talking about Unreal Engine 6 that they should be debuting at the end of this year to set up for the next generation of systems with Microsoft and with Sony. But even then, unless their big push really is to speed up development time, the way it works with Unreal is the game has to come out, which I'll give them credit there. It's very favorable right now with the terms they have set up for Unreal Engine, especially with smaller developers. But that also means it's going to cost Epic Games more money for a lot of the stuff they're doing with Unreal Engine. And it just seems like a lot of this stuff really does hinge for Epic Games on Fortnite. And there is also one last thing that I've thought about with some of these ongoing live service games. Fortnite has been around for a bit now. Like it was that 2016, 2017, and there 2018 again when it really peaked. But like it's been 7 or 8 years now of this game. And when I think about that, I go, man, this is it's a game that has gone through an entire console, multiple console generations now because they overlap, but entire generation almost of gamers who maybe when they picked it up, they were 11 or 12 and now they're going into college or they're thinking about going to the workforce. And then as they get older and older and older and they age through, it's like they maybe don't have as much time to game. They that kind of stuff. It gets more like, oh, we got to deal with the real world and go to work and stuff. Eventually, I do wonder if the generation that was really into Fortnite has to end up moving on and age out of it, and the next generation isn't as inclined to spend a bunch of money in Fortnite and play all the time. It's just something to think about for games that do run for what can end up being decades at this time. I mean, I think of World of Warcraft that's really been able to sustain itself through multiple generations. But I am curious if Fortnite is a game that can do something similar. But I guess we'll see as we go along, since while there was a decline in just the battle royale genre, Fortnite does still pull more than 100 million monthly active users. So they're not dead yet. But if a decline continues, who knows what'll happen or what the future of Fortnite looks like. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, with Epic Games moving to lay off 1,000 people just a couple of years removed from laying off 800 people. Is this more of an Epic Games problem, or is this more of a Fortnite Battle Royale like problem in general? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.